Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sim's YouTube channel, and welcome back to Midtown USA. This is episode number 7. And once again, Happy New Year to you all. Hopefully, 2018 is rolling along quite nicely for you. You guys are watching this episode on the 3rd of January, and I'm actually recording this episode. It's still 2017. It's actually Christmas Eve. It's the morning of Christmas Eve 2017, and I am recording this episode. The wife is still asleep, and so we are kicking off this episode. It is a brand new game day. It is game day number 5, and we're going to just roll right down here because I did not check this off camera before and see if any of these fields have come to life yet. So nothing is coming out of the ground just yet. Let's drive up and check our grass field and see how it's progressing. See if we've got any grass up here. We planted field number, I think it's field number 12 in grass. We'll take the roadway up there, albeit a bit of a rough one, I suppose. Probably could have just done just as well taking the tractor path up, but anyway, we'll give you guys sort of the scenic route to field number 12. At least I think that is what that field is. And I planted that in grass beforehand in the old Westbridge Hills and the other Westbridge Hills versions that I would play. I always put corn up here for some reason. Not real sure why, but we've got a little bit of grass there coming onto the field. I am impressed with that. That will certainly work. So let's go ahead and we'll just turn around. We need to go and deliver some eggs to a cafe that has recently ordered some eggs. And on the way, we're going to check, or maybe on the way back, we will check to see how the grass meadows down at the southern end of the map are progressing. You might remember I showed you those maybe in episode number 1. They were pre-planted in grass per the map author, ccs101, and so we've basically left those as grass. We've not done a mowing yet, and hopefully we will be able to do that relatively soon. Let's go ahead and take the sort of this path around. I think we can get there from here. It's basically over sort of on the southern end of the map, over near the BGA is where the cafe is that has ordered some eggs, and so we're going to take them over there. We've basically picked them, cleaned them all up. What our process is once our hens lay eggs, we go out and collect those on a daily basis. We bring them in and we wash them all down and everything, and basically put them in our refrigeration units there at the main farm until someone orders them. And essentially, folks are buying our eggs pretty much on a weekly basis, especially some of the cafes, some of the other vendors here in town, because essentially they can get, once the eggs that they're buying are basically within, say, a week old. A lot of the eggs that you buy at the grocery store are anywhere from several weeks old up to perhaps maybe a month, oddly enough. And so these folks like those farm fresh eggs, and I don't blame them. So let's just pull up here. This is one of our oops, as we have some weeds cutting in through the cab there. That's no good. We'll leave the truck running. We'll come over here and take a look. Might be pretty close. Might be pretty close to time to take a first cutting of our grass. We certainly will need it. We need, obviously, we need grass for both our silage purposes, as well as we need grass for hay. So we'll figure out what we need and when we need it and get all of that done. So let's see. Let me kind of pull out here and take a look at where this cafe is. I know it's over here on the back side of the excuse me, the back side of the BGA. Might be right up here at this turn. All right, the Down Home Cafe. So we're just going to pull up here. We'll set our parking brake really quick, jump out, and then just go sell these eggs. There we go. So $85. Not a huge order, but that's what they needed, and so we always tend to deliver to our customers what they need when they need it, and get that to them just as quickly as possible. All right, well, we're going to head on back to the main farm, and I'm going to meet you there. So wait for me over there at the main farm. I'll be right with you. All right, back at the main farm here. We're going to go ahead and pull into the shade here because, well, you know, keep that heat out of the truck for a little while or as much as possible. It is going to be a relatively warm day today. So we're going to go ahead and get started right with some more planting because that's what we basically need to do. And I'll just kind of give you a rundown here of what we've accomplished. We did go ahead and decide to pick up fields number 5 and 6. We're going to be helping the Future Farmers of America program here at the local MidTown school with these, and they're going to plant these in sunflowers. But we're going to tackle field number 7 and put sunflowers in that field, and that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're grabbing our Great Plains row crop seeder here. This is part of the big bud pack, and we've got it loaded up with sunflowers. Now it is a seeder only. It does not plant or it does not fertilize at the time of the seeding process taking place. And so what we have done is we have prepped that field in our normal fashion by fertilizing, plowing that fertilizer into the soil, then coming along and cultivating, and then we have applied fertilizer on top of the cultivation process, and then we're going to be seeding on top of that. So we'll still have the same level of fertilization that we've basically been getting out of our other work, our other process of planting wheat and barley and canola. That's what we have all around here. Is we've got canola on both sides of this road here, and then of course we'll come along at some point in time and we will fertilize that or spray those crops with liquid fertilizer. So let me go ahead and get set up here at the end of the field. We are going to do this field number 7 right over here. So let me get set up and I'll be right back with you. All right, and we're off. Seeding sunflowers for the first time on this map. I do enjoy sunflowers, and that's one of the reasons why we've chosen to plant sunflowers over in fields 5 and 6. Those are right off the town square, and the town really loves sunflowers, and there's sort of a beautification project that's going on here in MidTown, and so with the school being involved and everything, they want to have some nice pretty sunflowers growing there along the town square. They're going to have a big harvest celebration that'll be coming up in late summer, and they have it's sort of like old country fete for those of you in the UK and areas that use that sort of terminology, and maybe here in the US it's going to sort of be sometime around maybe homecoming or some other little summer, late summer, very early fall festival. And so they want those fields as beautiful as possible, and there's not much more beautiful that we can perhaps plant there than good old sunflowers. So that's what we're going to choose to do, and of course we're helping out the school at the same time. So just kind of stepping away from the role play just a little bit, this is kind of the series that I sort of mix in a little bit of real life stuff, things that I'm doing, things that I've been experiencing, etc. I do want to say that I did go ahead and pull the trigger and purchase Farmer's Dynasty. I've got probably 5 or 6 hours in the game up to this particular point in time, and I've got some thoughts on it. Some good, mostly good, I think, and perhaps some kind of meh. Could go kind of either way. I did, like I said, I did go ahead and purchase Farmer's Dynasty. If I called it Cattle and Crops, I'm sorry. I may have inadvertently referred to it as that, but no, Farmer's Dynasty. I purchased that a couple of days ago. And like I said, I've got about 5 or 6, maybe 7 hours of gameplay. And of course, by the time you watch this video, that is likely to be a lot more. I'm kind of, you know, working my way through the early stages of the game. Of course, there's kind of a set progress that you kind of have to go through. It's unlike at least unless you experiment with a cheat engine of something like that. There's no way to go in, and it's not as simple as Farm Sim where you go in and edit an XML file and add yourself in some money or add yourself some materials in your silos and stuff like that. There's no easy way of doing it. Again, you can use a cheat engine if you choose to go that path. I have used cheat engines before on other games where I've wanted to kind of work my way up through some other levels to experience other facets of the game, whatnot. With Farmer's Dynasty, at least right now, I'm not going to mess with a cheat engine for now. The game is obviously the game is still in early access, and it's available through Steam. I believe the sale is done, but I believe the sale was done a couple of days before Christmas, actually. So it's possible that they'll put it back on sale maybe at a later date. I don't know. I'm not associated with the game title at all. I purchased it outright in Steam, just like any of you would have done. Some of the things that I like about it, yes, I do enjoy sort of the grind with games like, for example, Car Mechanic Simulator, ATS, ETS2, Euro Truck Simulator 2, etc. I've done the grind process through those games, starting off like with the example of ATS or ETS2, essentially starting off with a small truck and working my way up, you know, doing quick jobs at first, which is just using whatever truck the company provides, and then becoming an owner operator and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of familiar with those things with the grind. And hold just one moment, let me grab my screenshot here, because you know me, if I don't, I'll forget. Okay, and we're off again. So anyway, about the grind. So I've done that with other video game titles, and that's what I'm doing with Farmer's Dynasty. As I went through the very first, steps appeared there with Oliver, or as my dear friend Eustace Pharmer likes to refer to him as Creepy Oliver, because he is a bit creepy, but so are all the other characters at this particular point in time. But as far as the grind is concerned, I am enjoying it. I don't always, I will admit that I don't always enjoy grinding out every single game, every single day and all that kind of stuff. But this one's been kind of interesting because, again, it's kind of working through all the various things. You kind of get experience with, how the game works and so on and so forth. And so it's a game where you not only have to basically work for money and build up money and everything as well, but you also build up social points. And so I think that I possibly described it in a previous episode as sort of a cross between Farm Sim 17, obviously, because it is an agricultural based theme, The Sims, because you do interact with other characters on the map, in the game, and you build a social status and everything. And then sort of maybe that house flipper game, or Car Mechanic Simulator, something like that, where you're also doing some repairs. So you basically inherit this farm, which was passed down to you from the death of your grandfather some years ago. Oliver's been looking after the farm, but there's some questionable there's a lot of questions around that, because essentially all the equipment's gone, and the farm is really in a state of poor condition. And so that's all part of the process that you come here. So basically you appear on the map, and you're an eager person to learn about farming. You don't necessarily know much about farming, but you do have handyman type skills. So maybe in your wherever you lived before you magically appeared there in Farmer's Dynasty, you were a handyman or you were a carpenter or something or another, because you do sort of come prepared for those types of tasks. Not so much the farming aspect of it, but definitely with the handyman stuff. And so you basically start, Oliver walks you through the process of making a few repairs on your farm, so you kind of get the hang of setting up the scaffolding, nailing some boards in, doing some plaster work, doing some metal grinding, etc. And that's kind of what it boils down to. So in addition to those things, you also have to worry about your individual players' health, and we stay healthy within the game by essentially ensuring that we're getting plenty of rest and we're eating on a regular basis. So yeah, we do eat in this game. We do have some things that we have available to us, some tomato soup, some tomatoes, some pumpkin or two or something like that. And so each of these different types of food items have a nutritional value to them, and will repair our general health status by variable percentages and everything, depending on what the item is that we are actually eating or going to eat. And then of course there's the rest element. Now the game progresses through, I would have to probably say it's very similar. It kind of has the feel of when you're playing Farm Sim 17 with the Seasons mod, playing at about 15x speed. So the day goes by relatively quick. I would say within maybe an hour and a half or so, probably no more than about 2 hours of gameplay that you have of actual, sort of daylight type hours. And you will start getting tired if you don't, and I think I feel it's a little bit premature almost with when you start getting the messages about being tired and missing your bed and stuff like that, because oftentimes that will happen around 7-8 o'clock. And we all know that the farmer life in real life is certainly not an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 kind of job. It starts oftentimes even before the roosters are starting to wake up, and it ends well before or well after ordinary folk have already stopped working for the day. And so anyway, so hopefully those kind of things will be tweaked and may not have to worry about that. But anyway, some of the things that I like about it, I like the aspect that there is an element of health involved, because I often think that with Farm Sim 17, this is more a game or more a simulation game of operating the various equipment. Obviously we've got animals and stuff like that involved as well, but there's not a whole lot with that. But in Farmer's Dynasty, obviously there is that care element, the rest and all that kind of stuff. I like that. I also like the repair aspect of it. What I don't know, and I still have probably more questions than I have answers, but like for example, once you go through and you get your farm and everything all repaired. Now you can repair your farm, and you can actually enhance it. I think maybe at the stage the game is in now, or certainly at a later stage, I believe that you can begin replacing certain things within your farm, within like the barns, and you can make the doors metal and things like that, I think. But what I don't know is, for example, after a period of time, do things begin to break down again? So for example, after you get your farm sort of back to a condition that everything is livable, then after a period of time, after a year or two within the simulation of the game, will things start falling apart again? Because I think that would be a little bit more immersion, a little bit more realism is if you have to go out and repair the chicken coop after you've just inherited it, then next year there probably is going to need to be some more repairs done to it. Same way with your cow barn. Part of the initial process is you're going into the cattle barn, you're fixing stalls and stuff like that. Well, after a while, those stalls are going to need to be fixed again. So will that be incorporated into it? Don't know. I've not got that far yet. Doing things such as plowing, I have plowed, I have cultivated, and I have harvested up to this point. So I've plowed and cultivated for one of the neighbor farmers. I did that to earn something, earn a piece of equipment. I forget, oh, I think the plow. I think I had to plow and cultivate her field to went to basically, and she gave me her plow, this character did. That is, there's some things that I like about it, and then obviously there's some things that I do dislike about it. One of the things that I do like about the game when it comes to operating the equipment and running the day-to-day aspects of the farm is that they did incorporate seasons into Farmer's Dynasty. There is a seasonal aspect to it where there is a time frame. You basically start the game. When you start the game, you are on August 1st, so it's coming up to fall. You've got a couple of fields that you own that already have crop in them, but of course you got to go out and earn a tractor, earn the harvester, earn a tipper, the plow, the cultivator you do own already. That's the only piece of equipment you own. And then there's the seeder, and then there's the manure spreader, and all these other things that you kind of got to go and collect. So I did things sort of in a logical fashion. Obviously, Oliver gives you his tractor, so I got that right off the bat. Then if you're going to consider doing harvesting of your own field, then obviously you kind of need to think about getting your hands on the harvester, and then of course you're going to need a tipper, and it just kind of flows through that process. Again, back to the seasonal aspect of things. When it rains, water puddles appear, mud appears. I don't know if there's much change in the way that the vehicle, the tractor, operates if the soil conditions are wet and muddy. I'm really, like I said, I have plowed. I actually did sort of plow in the rain because it happened to be raining at that particular point in time, and I wanted to go ahead and get that done and get the plow and everything. So I did do that. So I'm not 100% sure if some of the issues that I might have experienced or not experienced or whatever was related to that, but I wouldn't suspect that there's a whole lot of ground control or issues and stuff like that has been put in at this particular point in time, because again, it is sort of a work in progress. But for me, because I'm not a keyboard driver, I have never really operated these games. I think I've told you when I first sort of made my venture away from Flight Sim, where I've got external hardware that pretty much I can do everything. I flip switches, and I've got my yoke and my pedals, and I only have to use the mouse a couple of times within most of my flights. When I made that segue into, I think it was ETS2, that was kind of the first thing that I bought. I pretty much immediately went and got an Xbox type controller for my PC, and then even with Farm Sim 15, I used an Xbox type controller for quite a while, a month or two or so, and then I figured out, okay, well, I kind of like these driving based games, and so me being kind of a guy that I play these for the immersion factor, so therefore I want to have ultimate realism. I want to have as much immersion as possible, and so there I went and purchased my G27, and sort of the rest is history. But so obviously, not being a keyboard kind of guy, the first couple of hours that I played Farmer's Dynasty, I was playing with keyboard controls and mouse, and I was sort of all over the place. I actually ended up plowing and doing the cultivating work with mouse and keyboard, and it was quite comical. Let me just put it this way, because again, all of this fancy stuff that I use in Farm Sim 17, not only the mods like GPS and drive control and things like that and whatnot. None of that is available, obviously, for Farmer's Dynasty at this particular point in time. The tractor is an old, it's a old John Deere type tractor. They have removed the branding of it, which is, I've got some thoughts on that I might share at one particular point in time. Oh, what the heck, I'll go ahead and share them now. So when the game early preview started coming out and guys like Daggerwin and some of those others began playing this game before it became early access on Steam, the folks at Farmer's Dynasty had put the John Deere tractor in, and it was painted green and it was branded a John Deere. And so Daggerwin had probably recorded, and others as well, many hours of gameplay in Farmer's Dynasty showing a John Deere green tractor. And of course, when early access come out, because Farmer's Dynasty, they didn't have a licensing contract with John Deere, of course no one else does as well, or probably will have, they obviously had to change it. So it's they repainted it red, and it's called a John Bear or something like that. Anyway, I've completely forgotten what the tractor is now branded, but it's not it's certainly not branded John Deere. So I suppose some people have been upset about that, in sort of thinking, okay, well, you put this out there and you let folks record hours and hours of gameplay showing a John Deere tractor, and of course those of us that are sort of in the know do realize and do sort of know that, you know, well, John Deere is not going to be officially licensed. Nobody's going to get an officially licensed deal with John Deere, probably not even Giants, and they're the most established as far as agricultural based simulation games go. And so anyway, that got changed out, and so you have the tractor, and the tractor, you kind of have to get around the entire map and everything using your tractor, and it's slow. Its top speed is about 20, I think about 22, and I think that's probably in kilometers, 22, 23, something like that. And so the map is fairly vast. I don't know how it would compare to, say, you know, this map here, but if you could imagine only being able to drive, you know, 22 kilometers, and off the top of my head, I don't know how that relates to miles per hour right now, but if you could imagine having to get around doing that, it is quite a slow process. So, but let's see, what else did I want to kind of talk about some of my experiences with that. It's, you know, I will say that the developers are very, or at least they appear, the appearance that they are giving the community, the user community, the customer community, whatever, is very positive. They really do seem to be listening to what we say, but I sort of question things such as, okay, if I were going to form a company, and I understand that this is also a fairly small team of developers. I've heard like 2 or 3 or 4 individuals are working on this project. So my hat's off to them for being able to put together a small, have a small team and put together something that is pretty much certainly beating the socks off of anything else that's kind of out there. I think a lot of folks are a lot more impressed with Farmer's Dynasty than with Pro Farmer and some of those other games, and maybe even Cattle and Crops as far as that goes. Their early access is far more feature rich than, say, Cattle and Crops was when it first hit the internet. But one would think, and of course this is just me thinking, I'm thinking, okay, if I were going to start a software company to develop what I thought was going to be a next generation agricultural based simulation game, what would be the first thing I would do? Well, the first thing I would probably do is I would spend quite a bit of time playing what I thought was probably best of breed. So I think without a lot of argument, I think most would agree that Giants, Farm Sim 17, Farm Sim 15, is the best of breed that we have available right now. That's not in early access. It's a full-blown copy of a game with mods, with multiplayer functionality, all these kind of things, with DLC, with fairly good support, with a fairly robust user community, etc. You would invest hours playing that game. You would look at the things that they have gotten right. You would think about possibly the things that they have missed. So for example, with them adding sort of seasons to Farmer's Dynasty, I've got to say that's pretty good. That's a pretty good step in the right direction, because Giants is relying on the modding community to do that, and we never really had seasons in 15. The closest thing that we had with anything to do with more immersion and everything in Farm Sim 15 was, of course, the soil mod, which we all do miss that in 17. So hopefully maybe either Seasons mod can be further enhanced at some point to accommodate some of that soil mod-esque stuff, and that will come back. But anyway, so Farmer's Dynasty has done that kind of stuff. But other things that they've really missed the boat on, like for example, initially, when I first started looking at the information that was coming out immediately after they put the early access release out, the team basically said they had not ruled out wheel and controller support, but it was not something that they were really thinking about. Well, why? Why would you, and again, I understand that there's actually a small audience with these games. You might think that hundreds of thousands of sold copies or whatever the case might be is rather large, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually quite a small thing. And so there's a lot of money that goes into all this kind of stuff and everything. But again, if they did their research, if they really looked at Farm Sim 17, which obviously is best of breed right now, and I don't know when they started development on Farmer's Dynasty, so it might have even been before Farm Sim 17 came out, but you had Farm Sim 15, and before that you had 13, so you had things to look at. But with those titles, and there's a couple of more signs that have been knocked down, with those titles, one would think that they would realize that there are people out here that want the level of immersion that a wheel and a controller will provide to them, and that they would put that information in there, or put that code and everything in there. So, so I think with that, with respects to that, I think that they have missed a few things that they could have done a lot better with, but and other controller support is available. So I did plug my Xbox controller in, and it does work. It does work with the game. However, it's sort of either or. It's not both. And I'm not a huge expert with the controller. I'm still kind of fumbling around with the controls, what buttons do what. But like for example, on the Xbox controller, you've got your two triggers. They didn't map those in for accelerator or brake, and I would think that those would be pretty common, because like for example in GTA 5, when I do sort of feel like I want to go and shoot up a liquor store or something, or drive fast from cops, I will load that game up. But you've got the controls make sense when you have the Xbox controller in your hands. With this, it's a little bit different. Now, they're supposed to allow for customization or custom key bindings, and so that will be cool when that happens. And again, I keep telling myself that the game is in early access, and I'm going to remind you all that the game is in early access. But at the sort of at the same time, I think that there are just things that they should have put in. That it's not just Farmer's Dynasty. It's going to be everybody. We're going to have Pure Farming 18 will be coming out sometime this spring. At least that's what they're saying now. That's what their Steam page says. You might remember, if you're thinking, okay, well, I think I've heard of Pure Farming, but I don't vaguely remember. pure farming first sort of made its way into things, or we first found out about it, and it was called Pure Farming 17. So I don't know if they sort of sat back and watched how much negativity cattle and crops had been given, based on the fact that they over promised and under delivered, and so Pure Farming decided, okay, well, we're going to take some extra time. We're going to rebrand ourselves Pure Farming 18, because we realize that we're going to miss the boat on trying to get this thing out for 2017. So anyways, I'm going to continue to play it. Again, there's a lot of questions that I have. Again, more questions than really answers at this point. One of the things that seems to be sort of an undetermined thing right now within the STEAM discussion groups is like, what is the proper field prep, planting, fertilization, etc. Folks are kind of taking their experiences from Giants Farm Sim 17 or 15 and applying them in Farmer's Dynasty, and basically losing some work. So, for example, folks have maybe plowed first and then fertilized, or maybe fertilized first and then plowed, or whatever, to only find that if you fertilize first and then go out and plow or cultivate, that wipes the fertilization away. It wipes the fertilization layer away. So those are kind of things that, is a little bit odd, because again, we can do it a certain way in Farm Sim 17. Now, that's not to say that these future game developers have to basically all get synced up with how you do things. But folks are also trying to apply some real world processes and procedures and everything into their gameplay, and finding out that some of that stuff is also suspect as well. So, how do you do it? What's the proper steps and all that kind of stuff? And I guess, over time, we'll just figure it all out. So we are at a little over 30 minutes, I believe. I'm going to be doing some edits to this video, and so some of this will come down. Most likely, I will, off camera, I need to move some equipment around, and then I think that we will come back into the same game day, perhaps, and maybe seed some corn, maybe do some other tasks on the farm as well. Maybe, hopefully, we will get a chance to mow pretty soon, at least mow our fields down in the southern portion of the map. We'll get that done, that task done, because I would hope that we could get at least 2, maybe 3 cuttings off of those fields this first year, and see how that goes. But I'm a little, I won't say that I am concerned right now, but I will just say that I was kind of hoping that we would see something over in these fields that we planted on day 1, which have yet to do anything quite yet. But that's okay, because we don't expect to be able to harvest our wheat until midsummer, so we've still got a little ways to go. So hopefully we'll start seeing some stuff popping their heads out of the soil there soon enough. But anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. I do hope that you all are having a wonderful new year. Hopefully 2018 is being nice to you. Thank you for continuing to tune in to the Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel and watching my episodes. I appreciate that. So please like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below the video. You can also reach out to me on Discord. You can even private message me on Discord if you have questions or whatever that you don't want to ask there in the public view. So anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves and each other. God bless you all, and come back again very soon. Bye-bye for now.